Changing it up here, boys. Let's get it. We got a good show. We're vibing already. Special guest, Hollywood, is in the building. I'm fired up. Ooh. Little DJ Davey Dave on the mic, boys.
Shelton's mom on the ones and twos.
Here we go, boys and girls. Good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of High Top Sports. It is, in fact, the best day of the week. Happy Wednesday to all of you. And just so we're clear, we are less than a week out from football, from busting uglies. We got football in a week. We got practice starting in just under a week, I think, which fires me up. We're having OTAs. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Some information's been coming out. Exciting things to go over. Lawsuit drama. I never felt like this was going to go away, but we're going to talk about that, obviously. Swolder joins the show. Like I mentioned in the pre-roll, Hollywood is going to join us, and I'm going to hype up Hollywood before he hops on. But before we do that, Mr. David Swolderquist is in the building. What's going on, big dog? How you doing?
Hey, man, good week, man. We got our boy Joe Hamilton back. Got us a 5-star wide receiver, man. I'm feeling pretty good. I got my lane chain on, baby. Best day of the week. Let's get it. Let's go.
It is. I forgot, man. These days have been stacking up. We're starting to find some momentum, which is exciting. A nice couple of 2 days in a row there, Sunday, Monday. Here we are Wednesday. It's been a good couple of days, good couple of stretch. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. Joe Hamilton, obviously a big-time pickup for the Florida Gators. We talked about it on Monday, but I'll get your thoughts and opinions about it. And again, this weekend is a barbecue weekend, big-time recruit weekend, and just in time for Joe Hamilton to hop in there and get it rock and rolling. But ladies and gentlemen, like I said at the top of the show, Connor Clark, a.k.a. Hollywood, joins us. And it's special this time, boys, because this is going to be uncensored Hollywood. This is uncut. He doesn't have to stay within the boundaries anymore. Typically, he comes on. He's got a suit, tie on. He's got to be business professional. No. Connor Clark's been retired. He's dialed in. What's going on, big dog? How you doing, man?
What's going on, y'all? It's a pleasure to be back on here with you guys. I appreciate the introduction, even though I don't deserve it. But it's fun. Like, it's a little different being on the other side of things for the last few months. Actually, shoot, it's almost been going on 6 months now, being away from covering the team, kind of getting to be a fan a little bit. It's fun, but it never really goes away. So kind of talk here and there, but it's good. I appreciate you guys having me on.
One of us. I
feel like I need to play like that AC/DC song, Back in Black. He is wearing black, by the way.
He is. I'm really pumped to have you on, man. It's always a blast. Again, I always got to make the note of it that you were our first guest. I feel like you kind of gave us our wings when we needed it most. So will always be in debt to you. But this is different. I'm excited to when we talk at games, and it's such a blast to get to talk to you at games because you'll give me the 401. You'll give me your honest opinion. Like, I mean, we can't even talk about it. But today, we're peeling back the curtains, boys. Look, I'm gonna hit you off the rip. I got a question off the dome here. This just dropped like a little bit ago. I don't know if you've seen it, but that's the odds of what coaches will be fired. Did you see it? You already saw it?
I saw it scrolling through social media a little bit. So, yeah, I saw that Billy Napier has the number one odds to be fired, or the first coach fired this season.
What do you?
There it is. There's the list.
Yeah. So it's for those who are listening, it's Napier 4-1. I mean, if you're a betting man, I mean, you run to the bank and you cash out everything, according to these odds. Sam Pittman, which is crazy that Sam is less than Billy. Then Mario. I've been saying Mario's on the hot seat, but it's been just overshadowed by Billy. Dave Aranda from Baylor, definitely. Clark Lee. How Clark Lee's that low, but it's Vanderbilt. Nobody cares. BYU head coach Ryan Day. I like Ryan Day up there. I've been kind of preaching the horn on Ryan Day. Like, he just can't continue to lose Michigan. It's the same. It's the equivalent of us going 6-6, 7-5. Like, it can't last forever. And then the list goes down. Shane Beamer, 16-1 is insanity. How he's not higher is that guy's just living on a prayer. He knows somebody and has something on somebody. The guy hasn't won either. I don't know if anybody in South Carolina hasn't realized it. He hasn't done shit. But give me your thoughts on this. Is this over the top for Billy, or is this right on par?
I don't know that I would have him number one. I can understand him being somewhere in the 3 to 5 range because of coming off back-to-back losing seasons and the schedule that's coming down right down Broadway this year. But I don't know that I would have him at number one. I definitely could see him in the top 3 to 5. But yeah, him being higher than Sam Pittman and Shane Beamer in the SEC alone is a little surprising to me. Um, your comment on Ryan Day is kind of interesting to me because I think Ryan Day will leave before he's fired.
Mm.
I think Ryan Day is tired of Ohio State fans being ungrateful,
Mm.
and I could see him walking for another job if given the opportunity at a prestigious program. And I think he leaves before he has the opportunity to be fired. Just my 2 cents on that situation.
That's a hot take we got to clip up for the show. I think we're in the same mindset. I feel like the fan base is going to be unhappy with it, but I didn't. Ryan Day saying "F you" was not in the cards, not in the bingo card for the evening. So I like the take there. Look, do you feel like the fan base heat could be the reason for the odds too? Because I don't know if this is like a Vegas odd or if this is just like a general consensus odd, right? That part I don't know. These things fly like crazy, these lists,
Yeah,
but
no, I definitely think that that can play into this factor. I know that there's a lot of people on social media, and obviously I'm sure that gets taken into account, the volatility or hostility of the fan base towards said coach. Because whether people like to believe it or not, um, if you have enough big money people, or even just the fan base as a whole, you saw it with what was it, Shiano being hired by Tennessee. The fan base blew up the athletic director, made that not happen, and now they're with Josh Heupel, and he's back at Rutgers. But yeah, as much as athletic departments, athletic directors, and just people in general like to say, "Oh, the fan base doesn't affect anything. Social media doesn't affect anything." Um, I disagree, and I believe that that can play and has played into him having the highest odds this offseason to be fired to start the year.
uncut Connor, Dave.
Yeah, I think there are certain factors. Like I know a lot of people look at this list and look at odds and say, "Oh, well, this is stupid." But like, there's always certain factors that go with odds, right? We look at the names and we're just like, "Okay, this is stupid." But like, you look at Mario Cristobal. Okay, he's got a really long contract. The odds of him getting fired before Billy Napier is just based on the fact he signed like I think it was like a 10-year contract that he signed. So I mean, you're forking over a lot of money right now if you fired Mario Cristobal, and he's been recruiting pretty well. So I mean, recruiting is the future. So I would say that probably the odds are a little bit lower than what it says there. Sam Pittman, I'm surprised that he's not in front of Billy Napier just based on the fact of his record, how he's recruited over the years. I would put Sam Pittman in front of Napier. Napier, obviously, you know the Florida fan base. You know how they are, win now or get the hell out. I would say, okay, yeah, you put him up there. Obviously, has not had a top 5 class yet. He struggled to get top 10 high school classes with transfer portal. He's done a little bit better. Dave Aranda over there at Baylor. We know the story with that. Ryan Day can't beat Michigan, can't win the Big Ten with top 3 classes. As you said, they're going to run him out pretty soon if he doesn't beat Michigan, or he might just run himself out of there. I get the list and why it is. I would put Sam Pittman first, though, in front of Billy Napier. Mario Cristobal, I think you could go a little bit down on the list just based on his contract. And Clark Lee, Vanderbilt, like you said, it's Vanderbilt. Not a lot of people expect Vanderbilt to win football games all the time, but like you expect Vanderbilt to at least be productive. And they so far, I just haven't really seen Vanderbilt be productive. They've kept themselves in games, but they'd always find ways to lose those games as well. So I agree with the list a little bit. I just think St. Pittman should be in front. I think Mario Cristobal should be down a little bit more. And Ryan Day, I guess he's in the right spot there, 12-1 odds. But these are all odds anyway. Doesn't mean that anybody's going anytime soon. They could keep Sam Pittman. They could keep Napier. They could keep Cristobal the next year. Nobody really knows. But that's my little take on the odds list there.
Keep in mind, this is the first head coach. So the odds are for who's going to be fired first. And I think the schedule plays a huge factor into that because of the gauntlet that the Gators have to go through. That Miami A&M, that skid could get ugly quick. And that's where I think the favors don't play into Billy's favor. But look, I'm not here to talk. I mean, some people are like, oh, we're not talking about Billy getting fired. It's just an interesting list. People are going to get fired up about it. I don't think Billy's getting fired. It was just an interesting conversation point. But look, Connor, like I mentioned at the top of the show too, you're very intertwined. Even though you're still out of it, you still hear about that. You still talk to guys. You follow this recruiting class, so you're really getting to see the guys that you follow for the last few years finally hit the field, right? So you know these guys in and out. You've been watching a lot of these kids too since they were really young. So you know this team better than most people actually realize. And like I said, you've always kind of had to bite your tongue. There's some excitement, obviously, from my side, always will be. 12-0. We're back. I want to get your honest and true opinion. Do you, one, your belief in Billy, right? Is he the guy to take it? Because you've been close to the program as well. And is this team as talented as I believe that it is, as people are claiming it to be? And is the schedule, it's a loaded question here, so make sure you write it all down. And is the schedule, scary, or is it just logo fever?
Yeah, so I'll hit the schedule portion first. I think the schedule is a gauntlet. Now, a lot of the teams are having to break in new quarterbacks. So you're not. I think when you look at the schedule, you see the logos on the schedule. You're like, how the hell do they win 3 or 4 games? And then you kind of dive further into it, and you look at teams that are bringing in new quarterbacks. Obviously, super talented teams, all in the SEC. But at the top of that's obviously going to be Georgia, Texas. Those are probably your 2 big marquee names that everybody's kind of pretty much already chalked up a loss. Then you go to guys like Texas A&M, who Connor Wegman hasn't been healthy all of his career. You've got LSU, who's breaking in a new quarterback. You've got Mississippi State, who's got a brand new coach.
Quarterback.
Obviously, Miami, just to start out the year, is breaking in a new quarterback and a brand new. He's playing in a new system for Miami, though it is similar. It has some similar nuances to what he played at Washington State. You're playing with new receivers, new running back, and then, of course, you can never count on Mario Cristobal to take a knee when the game's locked up. And then, of course, you get the back end of that schedule, and it's essentially a murderer's row at the back end of that schedule. So Florida's got to stack wins early. Now, to your point about the talent, this is by far and away the most talented team that Billy Napier's had since he stepped on campus. And quite frankly, probably the most talented team since Dan Mullen's first or second year, when he had Kadarius Toney, Kyle Trask, Trayvon Grimes, Kyle Pitts, Damian Pierce, all those guys on the offense. Defensively, this is probably the best team since one of McElwain's teams as far as talent alone. Now, will they be able to take that next step defensively with new coaches coming in Gerald Chapman, Will Harris, and Ron Roberts? I think those guys kind of speak to the sense of urgency that Billy needed to have coming into this season. Because Will Harris was not known as an elite recruiter. Gerald Chapman was not known as an elite recruiter. Neither was Ron Roberts. But every single one of them, when asked about after they were hired, or when you go and ask players that have played for them or coaches that have worked with them, are known as upper echelon developers and upper echelon coaches. So Billy, I guess from my perspective, Billy knew he needed to get the most out of his guys right now. And I think that speaks to the hirings of Gerald Chapman, Will Harris, and Ron Roberts. Obviously, your secondary last year was not very good. Still very young, but gave up a lot. You bring in somebody like Will Harris, who had one of the top secondaries in the country when he was at Washington, has an NFL pedigree, played at USC, and is known as a fantastic coach and a fantastic developer. Now you've got him working with a talented young secondary, with some older guys coming in from the transfer portal with DJ Douglas, Asa Turner, Triquez Bridges, to mentor those younger guys like Jordan Castell and Bryce Thornton, who I'm super high on. And then, of course, the cornerback room, you've got a veteran leader in Jason Marshall, Devin Moore, who's now a junior. And then, of course, you've got your talented young guys, Dijon Johnson, Aaron Gates, why am I forgetting, Jakeem Jackson. So the secondary is talented, and I think they found a guy that's going to get the most out of that talent. So kind of long story short there, I think it's a super talented roster in comparison to what he's had before, and that kind of eliminates all the excuses that we've heard the last couple of years of, oh, he's got to get his guys, or, oh, the talent's not there, or every coach will come in and say, hey, these guys shouldn't have been playing at the University of Florida. Not directly, but you see it with the roster management piece. So those excuses and those kind of sayings are out the window now. And I think the way that Billy's been talking to these kids that he's recruiting, and you could see it firsthand in his FaceTime video with newest commit Vernell Brown III. He said, we're going to go take care of business on the field, and we need you to help out with the recruiting class. So you can tell the coaches are obviously very confident going into the season. We just have to see that materialize as fans and as reporters or whatever you may be in order to actually buy into what's being said. And I think that's the same thing with a lot of these recruits. They want to see what's going on the field before they really buy into it, because you can say everything you want, but you're coming off of 2 straight losing seasons.
That was a phenomenal answer. In fact, I gave you 6 questions in one. And look, this is why I'm excited to have you on to talk to you, because again, you're very knowledgeable of the situation, and now we kind of, like I said, get the uncut, raw, censored version and your true opinion on it. The recruiting aspect obviously has been a blunder this offseason, and compared to what it has been, it's not over, right? But we're panicking. It's what we do. It's middle of July and we've got nothing to talk about, so everyone's losing their mind. An interesting point that those guys are brought in to coach and develop, which I think if you've been watching, you're okay with that. I've said it before. It's like, if we're gonna have if we're gonna have a 40 ranked recruiting class, we go 10-2. You don't got to recruit a soul, Billy. We'll figure it out later. Just go win some games. And it's so, and I look, to me, it's like, that's something I can teach. I can teach these coaches how to recruit, but having somebody who can just develop and really, that's not Billy. Billy can't teach everybody that. Do you think that that's part of the reason for? I mean, you kind of just alluded to it, that look, we're really focused on winning football games, so something has to give. And right now, it's the recruiting aspect of it. It's not that we're not focused on it. We're making an adjustment, and we think it's still going to pay off in the long run. Is that kind of where it's at?
Yeah, I think that's kind of where the mindset is. Obviously, Billy and the guys have proved that they can recruit, but it just kind of fell apart last season after a bad season. I think they were up to number 3 in the country, I think, at one point over the summer, and then things just kind of fell apart when the wheels fell off during the season. I think they're at the point now where they know, or you can kind of see it from Alabama's situation. Like, is it Kalen DeBoer?
Yeah,
I think that's his first name, Kalen DeBoer. He's won everywhere he's been. He's not Saban, but he's going to continue. Alabama's going to recruit itself, and then winning recruits itself too. And I think that's the biggest thing that we're kind of seeing going into this season is, yes, obviously they want to land high-level prospects before the season to get people locked in and not have to flip prospects down the line. But they also have come to that realization where they're going to have to put up a solid performance on the field and let that speak for itself. And winning cures everything, whether it be fan base hysteria, recruiting, coaching hot seats, what have you. Winning cures all, and winning recruits itself.
Joe Hamilton just came back in the building. Very weird. You're smiling. Okay, good. I'm glad that you're taking the bait here.
Yeah.
Very interesting situation. He leaves in January, February. We kind of hear murmurs that he could be coming back. Goes to Texas A&M. Comes back very quickly. 3 things. It was an inside job, right? We sent the spy over to go see what's going on. That's one hypothesis, one theory that's running around.
Exactly.
2, my theory was he heads over there, grass isn't greener on the other side. This is where I think, again, goes back to Billy just being a great all-around guy, but I say lacks the killer instinct, and maybe he's finding a little bit of it, but people go and say, man, Billy really had the best interest in me and is really, truly delivering on his word. Just might be taking a little bit longer, and these guys are selling, or actually car salesmen, and telling me, the best thing in the world. It's not exactly what it is. And also, do you believe, hey, maybe they noticed there was a dip in recruiting, like this guy could really help us what we're missing. Let's maybe go give him a little bit more than what we weren't doing before. What is it? Or is it a combination?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a combination of the last 2.
I was like, he was a spy. All right, cool.
Yeah, so he's definitely not a spy.
Thought you were gonna
he
take
definitely
it.
went over there to see what Elko was going on. No, but so Joe's originally from Texas, so the opportunity for him to go back to a school like Texas A&M in the SEC and get what was essentially a promotion from Texas A&M from his time at Florida was really too good of an opportunity for him to pass up. I believe, from what I understand, it's one of those kind of grass wasn't always greener on the other side. Joe loved working with Billy Napier and with the staff that Billy Napier had assembled, and really enjoyed his time at Florida. Florida really did not want to lose him the first time around, but just couldn't do what it took to keep him there. So once it kind of the smoke kind of started to come out that hey, Joe may not be um, may want to make a move back, then Florida, of course, tried to do everything they could to get him back because he was such an integral part of recruiting for the last two cycles. A monumental portion of landing DJ Lagway was Joe Hamilton. So somebody that's that valuable to your organization, you're gonna try and do everything you can to get them back. And I think it was just the right time for both organizations where Joe really enjoyed, like I said, working for Billy Napier, being in Gainesville, working at the University of Florida. So when the opportunity presented itself for him to come back, and the stars kind of aligned over the last few weeks to a month, it was just a no-brainer for Joe and a no-brainer for the University of Florida to come back together and really bring everything back to somebody that should have never left in the first place if you're a Florida fan.
For sure. Davey?
Yeah, I mean, Connor's right. Winning cures all in a way. Obviously, a lot of people will. I talked to a lot of those people in Discord, especially Dave's Discord, and some people think, oh, we can't. We got to do more than just win games. And I'm like, well, the problem is like when you don't win games, boosters don't get on board. They're saying, hey, you got to prove yourself. You got to prove yourself before we give to NIL. So you start winning games, they get back on board. You get Joe Hamilton in the building, one of your best recruiters who got DJ Lagway and all that too. You combine that with the season that you have with Graham Mertz, returning quarterback, and as Connor said, you have way more talent than what you did when you first started here. And like I always say, it's Dan Mullen's guys. He's playing with these guys. He's got to get rid of these guys. Well, now you gotten rid of most of them, so the excuses have ran out. Your schedule sucks. I get it, but the excuses have run out. I even said that last week. I said, look, everybody's saying 7 games, he's great. 6 games, I don't know. I want 8 or more. Like, you've got to show me something this year. I mean, you win 8 or more, you're good. You're golden. You're going to probably flip some guys. I don't think you're going to flip a lot. You might flip some, but you can also hit the portal again. You're going to have to hit the portal this cycle really, really hard. It sucks. I know we want to get away from the portal and get like 25 guys at high school every year and just take guys out of the portal that are good. Right now, you can't do that just because of the situation that you're in. But getting Joe Hamilton back, winning games will cure most of everything that's going on right now. But Joe Hamilton, I even heard like a couple months ago that he was interested in leaving A&M, and that's all I really heard on it. And then all of a sudden, you start hearing rumblings of like, hey, he's returning to Florida. So I was already pumped. Like, I was smiling ear to ear because, I mean, obviously that was one of our best recruiters. Obviously, the wide receiver coach that left and Billy Gonzalez came in, he was one of our better recruiters as well. But at least you got Joe Hamilton back in the fold. That's going to help out recruiting. It's going to springboard it a little bit. Obviously, getting in a 5-star wide receiver as well, that'll help springboard it a little bit going into, I guess, August before the season. You might pick up a couple of guys before the season starts. But at the end of the day, you're still going to have to win games. And you start losing games, those guys might come off the board as well. I don't think Verno Brown is, but some of the other guys will.
Another weird, I guess, movement in the staff is Mark Robinson. He comes in from A&M, another A&M thing. He was their AD. He comes in as like a NFL savant to run the front office NIL type, which I loved the hire. It wasn't a big splash hire. Like, people are like, whatever. But when you follow it as closely as we do, you see every little tidbit and you see how it's going to impact the game. He's now been reported as of today interviewing for Georgia, which is, again, he got hired in January and is already on the move for a role that, in my opinion, is very popular. Do you have any knowledge of this or insight on this, Connor, that why or how or what the hell's going on here? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, no, there's not much that I know about this situation. Honestly, the initial hire of him on its face looked pretty solid. But he's not somebody that's going to get talked about because he's not going to be doing the recruiting. He's not going to be talking to a lot of these kids. He was more a chief of staff role for an organizational purpose. Obviously, you don't want to lose somebody that is in charge of some sort of organizational structure. But I really don't know what the move is if he does indeed leave, if they have to replace him, who they try to replace him with. It's really not like a huge like blockbuster, like, oh my God, this guy's leaving, because when they hired him, it wasn't as such also.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can already see everybody saying, hire Urban Meyer. Hire Urban Meyer. I mean, you got to also think, though, too, he's only been there, 7 months in that role? So is it that big of a loss if he goes? I mean, yeah, like you said,
Yeah, what
it
has he
does
done? I
suck
don't know.
losing somebody from like an organizational standpoint, but somebody that hasn't been there that long, is it really that bad? I
And to
don't know. We'll
Georgia.
find out. If he goes to Georgia, I guess we'll find out.
That's the part that always frustrates me. Well, look, I mean, this is all great insight, Connor. I really do appreciate it. I do kind of want to get your final thoughts and opinions. Kind of just give me a number. What are your expectations? You heard Dave just say 8 has to be the number for me. The question we're asking everybody who comes on the show, is there, I mean, it's everyone's saying it, is there a number that Billy is safe? And if there is, what is it for you? But what's your floor and what's your ceiling?
Yeah, so I think he's safe as long as he makes a bowl game. Because my thought process and kind of what I've gathered is they're going to give Billy a year, as long as this year does not implode, a year with DJ Lagway as his starting quarterback. Because I think everybody, and you never want to keep a coach around for one player, but when that one player is DJ Lagway, was the number one quarterback in the country last year, you're going to do everything you can to try and keep that young man around, including keep a coach that made a bowl game. As long as, like I said, as long as the season does not implode, I expect Billy to be around as long as he makes a bowl and have the opportunity to have DJ Lagway as his starting quarterback. Because if he's the transcendent talent that everybody seems to think he is, then he can immediately change a team as the starter. So I think that's the situation at hand right now. I don't see Billy getting fired as long as he makes a bowl game. And as far as my expectations or what I think should be, I think obviously the bare minimum should be 6 games. I think 7 to 8 is a realistic expectation that should kind of quiet down the noise of the fan base on his back. If he gets anywhere from 8 to 9, I think the noise completely subsides. And that's one of those situations where it's not going to be easy to get to that number. But if you want to prove that you are the future of Florida football, or you're the right coach to be here long term, you have to somehow find a way to get between 7 and 9 wins this year.
They in the playoffs with 9 wins?
I think if they win 9 games, they are in the playoffs because of how tough the schedule is.
Yeah.
And it's
Also, to me, I say 8, but like if you win 7 regular season games and then you win the bowl game, that's still 8. So I'm good with that.
Yeah, that does count as an 8th win. So yeah, you can go 7-5, go to a bowl game, win an 8th, and satisfy your 8-win season.
9-3 mayhem ensues, and the amount of tweets that I say
9-3, Sheldon won't be able to be told anything.
Do you go okay. Over under that week? I tweet out we're back. Over on, like what do you think the line's going to be?
Especially if one
I
of those
set the line at
like
9.5, and there's only 7 days in the week, so I'm
that.
going over on the 9.5.
Love that. I'm
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to be
man,
able to do.
hey, you win like 9 games and you upset like a Georgia or Texas, like people are going to be extremely happy.
You lost. It's going to be going.
Yeah,
everywhere.
I think a lot of that comes with how those games look too. Obviously, nobody, like I said at the top of the show, nobody expects to beat Georgia and Texas. If you somehow upset them, or if you make those games super interesting, and then you win 7, if you win 7 games and one of them's against Georgia, no chance anybody's upset.
Yeah,
but that's you're not factoring in those 2 games when you're saying, oh, I think they need to get to 7 wins. So if you win 7-8 games and make those 2 really interesting, the noise quiets down a lot.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. Connor Clark, 12-0, Gators by a million. Connor, pleasure, pleasure as always. We'll have to have you on back in the middle of the season when the Gators are 7-0 to double down on the excitement here. 8-9-0. I don't know if the channel will be safe for anybody to come on. So I will try to get you on before mayhem ensues. But man, it's always a blast to get to chew on your little bit, get your thoughts and opinions about it. Such a pleasure, man. I appreciate you. Tell me where they can follow you though, even though you're just more of like a personal tweeter now. You still put a little dosey dough on there every now and then.
Just
Connor,
a little bit. Just a little bit. I like to have some fun now.
Are you a couch tweeter now?
No, I'm an armchair tweeter now.
There you go. There you go.
Armchair quarterback, armchair coach. I'll be yelling at the TV, telling them what I would have done better.
One of the smarter
Why'd you
ones,
run
though.
that play?
Feels
I
good.
mean, it just comes with the territory, man. You get to have a good time, hang out, and just mess around a little bit. So
I better
I like
see
having a
you,
good time with it.
since you're not at like SI or anything. I better see you at a Harmonic Woods tailgate, man.
Yeah. I'll try to make my way out there. I'll definitely be in town for week one. I already got my tickets locked up for Miami. Working on trying to get there for the UCF game as well, and then of course, if there's any other games that I can find a way to scrounge tickets up at, as long as the season's going fairly well. Towards the end
I
of the
got,
year, there, I'm
I
not.
got, I got,
We'll see how it goes, but yeah, I mean, should be
I
a
gotta
fun
ask you one
time. I
more
get
question.
to be a fan.
One,
No, what's going on?
one more question. You go to that UCF Florida game. Who you cheering for?
Oh,
Because I know you're
stop
a
it,
UCF
Dave.
alum.
Stop it, Dave.
Oh man, you got to ask me that question, and I'm gonna probably get some crap about this from UCF fans. But yeah, I grew up a
Oh,
Florida fan. It just doesn't leave. Obviously, I'm also a big UCF fan. I'm not shy about that on the timeline. I support the school that I went to, school I graduated from. But when you're born into to being a Gator, that doesn't just go away because of a college that you went to. So I root for UCF every week except for when they're playing the Gators.
Which isn't often, so
okay,
it's all
that works.
it's all good.
Precisely. Yeah.
Connor,
No.
appreciate you, man.
Yeah.
Go
Very
Gators.
excited, and I also pump the Orlando area prospects like crazy, whether they go to UF or not. Big proponent. My Twitter has leader of the 407 movement. I take that very seriously. So it was very good for me to see a 407 by the way of 352 announced to the University of Florida last weekend when my guy Vernell Trey Brown, decided to follow in his grandfather and father's footsteps and become a Gator. A fantastic young man. I'm sorry for kind of hijacking this situation, but I had to make sure I got it in there. Trey is a fantastic young man. I've been talking to him since he was about seventh grade, and just outstanding athlete for obviously, but first and foremost, great young man. And Florida got a fantastic player and person that's going to be able to lead the team and hopefully get them back to national prominence. And I think Zach Abolverdi posted an article saying that he's the first composite 5-star that Florida's ever landed during the 247 composites era. Because when Percy Harvin came to Florida, he was not a composite
Yep.
5-star because there wasn't that many sites.
Wow. Well, look, you don't have to apologize for hijacking it. You're always a Hall of Fame guest on the show, so I appreciate your insight on that and love hearing that. Again, we were already pumped about Vernell, but I think we're going to be more pumped now just hearing the stud that we got. And look, when you think about what that class is going to look like next year with Trey, Vernell, possible Nation Montgomery, Mazzell, Andy Jean, Boardingham. I mean that nobody's going to block for him, but by golly, if they're able to get the ball off, boys, I mean, look out.
Don't forget about Joshua Moore now. Very under the radar kid. Fantastic football player.
We got 19 wide receivers. I don't know where they're all going to play. Maybe some will block. I don't know, but I mean, just get them on the field, boys. We got some studs out there. Connor, you're the man. I appreciate you as always, Bubba.
Always a pleasure, guys. Thank you for having me on, even though I'm a nobody now. And
No, Hollywood.
always a good time to talk football with you.
What's
You're
your
Hollywood,
at?
man.
People are asking what you're at, Connor, on Twitter or X.
What is my at? My at is Connor Clark. Connor with an E, Clark with an E.
There it is. Thank you, sir.
Simple enough, guys.
Thanks, Connor.
Appreciate it, guys. Always a pleasure.
Yes, sir. Connor Clark, ladies and gentlemen. Absolute legend. Appreciate him as always for coming on here, giving us his thoughts and opinions. Look, very, very close to the program, even though it's he's not working for them anymore. He's still very intertwined, and just like all of us are, we're all intertwined. We care about it. Keena Johnson threw us a $5 super chat earlier in the middle of the interview. Thank you, Keena. What's up, High Top Boys? How y'all doing on this Wednesday evening? We're living the dream, Keena.
What's up?
Thank you
What's up, Keena?
for the
What's up,
support.
man?
We've got a great show left in store. Connor's just getting warmed up. 200 strong in here, boys and girls. Smash the like button and subscribe. We're 30 days out, just a little bit over 30 days until football starts. Let's talk about these Fong Bombs, these big time recruits that are coming in. So Nation Montgomery is set to make his announcement here in just a month's time, but right before the season kicks off. Could it be this amazing August? Fong Bomb. Florida leads the way as of now. We felt really good about Nation for quite some time now. I'm excited. Don't get it twisted. But I want some O-linemen. Just give me the 6'6", 300-pound dudes. You know what I mean? Like, it sounds horrible to say, but I feel like we've got 19 wide receivers in this class with Joshua Moore, obviously Renell Brown, the 2 tight ends, Micah Jones, and I can't think of his other name. A lot of talented guys. And look, I'm not saying I don't want Nation. Don't get it twisted. I'm pumped to have Nation Montgomery too, 4-star wide receiver. But who's gonna block for these guys? Swolder? Somebody's got
all the overseas offensive linemen we have on the roster is going to block for I guess Nation Montgomery, so he can at least get open back there in the backfield. But no, I mean, you take a talent like this. You had Joshua Moore, Vernell Brown. I mean, this is a really, really good wide receiver class if you look at it. I mean, last year's wide receiver class on a star level probably wasn't like as close as this one, but there was a lot of speed. You had Abrams, you had Hawkins. I mean, anything with any kind of speed you can get on the field, as long as you can utilize the speed, it's going to be deadly. And I think this is another combination of, hey, look, Nation Montgomery, I think he runs around in like the 4.4 range. So he's got some speed. But you combine that with Vernell Brown and Joshua Moore and like you said, all the other guys on the roster. I mean, you're coming up with a deadly, deadly wide receiver core, especially if, like Billy Napier, he stays, and you're giving DJ Lagway a lot of weapons to throw to. And you got to think, DJ Lagway, a lot of these kids know DJ Lagway is going to be throwing to them in the future. So Florida's already an enticing school to come to. I like the fact that, if we land Nation Montgomery and we've got 3 pretty good wide receivers on the roster, I like the fact that DJ Lagway is coming in and throwing to him. You got to think, too, even with some offensive line woes, you can, with a dual threat quarterback, you can kind of get around some of those woes a little bit. Like, they already got the run threat, and like I said this last week. I'm not going to go through it last week. A lot of those safeties, those linebackers, they scoot up, cornerbacks scoot up. Automatically think there's going to be a run play, dual threat quarterback in. I mean, you can take top off. You can literally disguise some of your plays to throw off a defense with these kind of wide receivers that are coming in. And I think it's going to be a deadlier offense with DJ Lagway in it, just based on the fact that he's a running quarterback. So you have to account for that. So I do like it. We can take any wide receivers we want to, but as you said, on a star level, the offensive line recruiting has to get better, but I do like the size that they bring in too. So if they're good developers, Rob Sale can prove he's a good developer along with DeCoster. I think we're sitting in good hands right now anyway. And offensive lineman, and I will say the offensive lineman is a harder position to scout. It's one of the harder. I think it is the hardest position to scout from what I was talking to somebody from Rivals a long time ago. He was talking about how offensive line was like the hardest one to scout. But if they are good developers, I mean, for the future, I do see Florida's offense starting to be kicking up a little bit more. Graham Mertz, great quarterback, great time to throw. Pretty accurate, pretty safe with the football, just doesn't have that running ability. And DJ Lagway's got that running ability. He's got that arm strength too. So I'm pretty pumped about the wide receivers coming in.
And look, let's stay on par with the recruiting. We've got a big barbecue week. I can't even say big. It's a barbecue weekend this weekend coming up, which is typically after Friday Night Lights, but they moved it to this. They didn't move it. Just Friday Night Lights moved around. Barbecue weekend where recruits will be happening. And, this is in the past been a really big weekend that have led to commits that have, moved relationships forward. The 2025 visitor list, here's what we're looking at. Chad Gasper, he's already a commit. Miles Johnson, commit. McLeod, commit. Jesse Lee, the tight end I just mentioned, commit. Clark, commit. Wiggins, commit. Brown, commit. And Nation Montgomery, Florida lean. The only other 2 are Xavier Hardy, 4-star defensive lineman, and 4-star linebacker Ty Jackson, the number 1 linebacker. So all Florida commits outside of 2.5 because one's crystal balled. Not a single offensive lineman is
that's
there.
The problem, right?
Yeah, very strange. It's a big weekend. Now how they're managing this weekend. 2026. There's a big a list of guys. There's also some guys coming on Thursday, but they're 2026 too. So I don't know. Maybe this weekend could be a more of a futuristic weekend, and that's what Friday Night Lights was kind of when we talked. I remember talking to Connor last year about this. Was these summer events, the barbecues and things were more of a futuristic events. And again, it's kind of building your class you already have plus trying to. So guys that are committed are trying to almost commit for recruit for 2026. That's what it's appearing like. So I can't say it's not an exciting weekend. I think just the way this weekend is being treated is different than it has been in the past because like we've talked about before on the show, a lot of these kids got their visits and everything done very earlier on in the cycle because people are now committing in December versus February. So everything is shifted up a sector. And I think that's why we're seeing this barbecue weekend that was once a massive weekend for this year's prospects. It's now evolving into futuristic picks.
Yeah, I mean, this recruiting cycle, and I even heard from somebody on the inside where they're probably going to go more portal to offensive linemen this cycle. I mean, obviously, if that's not something that you've seen as a fan, you probably have already probably thought that as well. But yeah, I mean, like, look, they even said they've even said like the barbecue at the end of the month is pretty much not one of those big things that they usually do every year anyway. A lot of 2026 guys are coming to this. I think there's more uncommitted 2026 guys coming to this than there is 25 guys. But I did hear too, and don't quote me on this and don't think that there's going to be this or that, but I did hear that there could be some other surprise ones that come along, whether we hear about them before the barbecue or not, I don't know. But I heard that there could be some other surprise ones coming to the barbecue, and I don't even know the names. Nobody even told me any names, but if they did, I probably couldn't disclose it anyway. But keep that in mind too. But this is it. I mean, like, you got to think this is probably going to be a very, very small class until you start winning football games on the field. As I said, you might flip a couple, maybe a Malik Autry who said he wants to wait until he sees
Auburn
the Florida Gators defense.
Yep.
Stubbs kind of said that too, but a lot of these kids are in it for the money too. So I would not put that past me. But at the same time, Florida's got plenty of money in NIL. If they start winning some games, they can flip some guys. Maybe some offensive linemen as well. We don't have to worry about it as much towards the end of the cycle. But for right now, especially in July and before the season, as a Florida Gator fan, I wouldn't expect a lot. I would expect a couple, maybe down the stretch, maybe 2, maybe 3, but that's about it.
So we got some little barbecue drama going on with the roast still happening here. Obviously, this legal action with Rashada and Billy, it's not going to go away quietly. We knew that it wouldn't. There was, in the legal terms, I would say a little bit of a slap back. I reached out to our lawyer friend that we had on, Elliot. He's from Feast World Traveler right now, so he couldn't come on the show. A couple of things. If you read it, it was very interesting. Hal Lewis is the lawyer for these guys. Hal is a big booster. Yeah. He's very active on Twitter. If you read through it, it's hilarious. There's lines in there like "This isn't The Price is Right." There's like movie references. I was like, "Yo, this is wild to read." Like,
that's all Hal Lewis for you.
Yeah, it felt I felt like I was reading like a novel. Like it was not their typical. I would say like lawyer. I don't know the word that I'm looking for, but it wasn't what I intended to read. It was actually very fun to read.
If I was a lawyer, I'd be using that terminology. I'm sorry.
So look, I even asked the lawyer. He goes, "Look, that typically doesn't really sway the judge or and get them fired up, but for social media, it's big. Again, that's his opinion on it. This is not my professional opinion. That was from his professional opinion. That was his take on it. And kind of what he said was like, look, what we kind of all alluded to before, like there isn't much here. And from what he explained to me was that it's just Hugh trying to remove himself because it was almost like they packaged Hugh into this and they kind of in a way through that, hey, you don't have enough evidence to bring me into this. And so he said, look, there's a couple options that could happen here. He was giving me all this jargon. I was trying to understand what the hell he was meaning. He goes, the motion has a legit shot, the motion meaning to dismiss him. If nothing else, if it's an amended complaint isn't filed and an opposition is filed, assuming Hancock loses, it's a way to see how the judge views the case. So what he means by that is if like it does get tossed or whatever happens from this point on, kind of gives you a little bit of a foreshadowing, a crystal ball, if you will, of, again, what he just said, how the judge views this entire thing, how the judge views the initial complaint of the data or of the information that was provided in this entire case. He also said it's kind of a, depending on, it's also a test to see what the other lawyers have, puts more work into their plate, Rashada's lawyers. So you throw this out there and he goes, look, if I had the FU kind of, if it was him, Elliot, he goes, and I had more information, I would refile a new claim with more information, almost kind of like, suck it, that's like fine. Yeah, like a doubling down on it versus, because what they're asking for is like, hey, make some adjustments because this isn't accurate. So you agree that, yeah, maybe I could have done a little bit better and you adjust it, or you come back with something completely different and you just hammer even harder. It's like, I was saving this for later, but since you want to talk about it, let's talk about it. So it's very interesting. It's a little bit of a back and forth. This stuff happens, I assume, all the time. But because of the
Yeah.
circumstances, because of who's involved, and because it's Hal tweeted this. Hal tweeted he tweeted the whole thing out.
Hey, Hal's a silly guy, man.
Yeah, he tweeted the whole. I don't know what it's called. The paper. It was like an 18-page.
The docket.
The
The
docket.
18-page docket.
Yeah, the 18-page docket
call
of
it the docket.
basically like, hey, your thing's a piece of crap. It was really funny it was a blast to read. I was like, I was dying. I was like, yo, this is wild that I was like, this is this kind of stuff that I would write, like almost like a sarcastic, satire take to the situation. How I use analogies to explain how I'm thinking, and that's what he was doing. Like he was using analogies to support his argument. Had me dying, had me rolling.
Yeah, it was funny because I sent him a DM after that with like a gif of me just laughing because I read the whole thing. Well, I didn't read the whole thing, but I read most of it, and it had me cracking up. But like, yeah, I mean, like, I'm no lawyer, but like, they could, I guess, like, if they filed to dismiss it, they could come back and say, okay, well, we're going to countersue or we're going to do something, and they could come back. I mean, that's the thing is like you're waiting on, and the thing with these court cases, they take a while to, go through the motions and all that kind of stuff too. So like you got to think these judges and these courts, they have other cases that they're dealing with as well. So, it takes a while, but like, I'm very curious to see what the Rashada's move is and what everybody else's move. Sorry about dogs barking in the background, but, I'm curious to see what happens like now with just the case and everything else and how they're going to come back. And if they say, oh, well, we some new things came to light, and I highly doubt anything's going to come to light, but if I'm Rashada and I'm on that side, I'm like trying to figure out, okay, well, they probably already know a lot of this is mumbo jumbo and BS. Should we really try to go back and do this, or should we just let it go?
Again, you get, I think how the Rashada side responds to this and how the judge responds, like Elliot said, will give you a better pulse of what's going on. Because again, that first shot that was thrown over the bow, that sets a tone, right? I mean, you're swinging at it, it comes from nowhere. You've really got to make a stand. This is the second blow. This is the second fire back over the bow. If you were playing Battleship, you take your shot, hope to get a hit, and that's kind of where we're at now. We're waiting to see if there was a little bit of a blood drawn. And again, this might also lead to a settlement outside, which we thought would happen anyways. But I think this could speed that process of like, yeah, we ain't got shit, so let's just settle and get over with. Who knows?
Yeah,
Again, it's an interesting thing to follow.
I personally think it's just like a money grab if they're trying to, but I think our side's just like, dude, you're not getting anything.
For sure. So look, there's a couple articles. I linked them down below from Zach Alberverdi. Some fantastic stuff. We're going to take a little bit of them, not everything, but I took these three names, and then we're going to talk about some intel that's made some adjustments. Again, links in the description. Go check them out. Zach also the one who directed the Vernell and shot, and Quentin Tarantino'd his commitment video, which was fantastic. But breakout players that they wrote about from the OTAs, some noise that they're hearing. Some of those guys. These are more than just three. I took these three, and the reason I took these three have been the ones I'm most excited about. Obviously, DJ Lagway is somebody that everyone's excited about. I think we have our own anticipation about that, but I think what's in front of him with being Graham Mertz is going to quiet that noise more than we would like. And if it does quiet it, hopefully it's for good reason. But Miles Graham, one that we were really excited about, obviously comes in with the injury. The reason why I wanted to bring him up is that he's healthy. This is the report, healthy from his injury. He's been a few practices and has made a strong first impression with the coach and teammates after being back. So I'm excited to hear that because I was really excited to see him in the spring game. We obviously hear the injury. I talked to his dad during the spring game. Wasn't a serious injury, just something that's been lingering for quite some time. They had an opportunity. Let's go fix it, and that's exactly what they did. Obviously, they probably way out of the timeline, and the fact that he's already hit the ground running, he's essentially fighting for a backup spot with Shamar, because it looks like Pup has really solidified himself as him and Shamar are 1 and 2. But Miles behind Shamar and being that second guy, we're going to see a lot of Miles, which is exciting. Again, think about that, the freshman we're going to see a lot of this year at that linebacker position. Next being, and somebody who came in late, and somebody that this linebacker class was elite, Aaron Childs. Miles Graham being the legacy player, obviously he gets a ton of hype. Elgin McGray, Aaron Childs coming, he was a number 1 player from Maryland, so he kind of gets not brushed to the side, but this class had a lot of just fun, talented, high potential guys coming in. So when you come in a class like that, you in a way drop down the list of excitement, right? Not in a negative way, just it is what it is. But Aaron Childs is an absolute beast. His size alone, this guy is NFL ready physically today. This is what they wrote. It says Childs is a summer enrollee, but won't stop him from seeing the field this fall. He's been a beast in workouts, performing near the top in all the chart categories Florida measures and keeps track of. Childs has a couple plays ahead of him at middle linebacker or Mike linebacker, but should still play in the rotation. So
Yeah.
crazy to hear about what he's doing just off the field. And these are OTAs, so there's no coaches and whatnot. It's them directing their own practice. But those two guys, and look, that's that linebacker room, a room that has struggled over the last few years. It needs some juice, and we've been hearing great things with Shamar and Pup, but we've lacked the quantity. And look, Derek Wingo's still in that room. So think about it. If Miles is competing with somebody like a Derek Wingo, who's your breakout player of the year, who we would love to see him do well, this room is looking extremely, extremely healthy with quantity and quality. Something, again, it hasn't seemed or even felt like we were going into it. I don't feel like we've gone into a year feeling this optimistic about a linebacker room.
Yeah, I mean, you go back to last year with all the missed tackles and how the team struggled when Shamar James was hurt, and just a lot of big run plays that were just giving up, and then a lot of guys getting into the secondary. Now you finally got guys that can solidify at least that linebacker spot that can help out there, especially obviously if there's a breakdown on the defensive line or something like that. So it's good to have like a guy like Aaron Childs coming in at like 230 pounds already. He came in at like 220, now he's 230. And he's already starting to make plays. I mean, we saw the Under Armour All-American game where he was the main linebacker out there making plays. Didn't win MVP, obviously, but he was out there making plays, getting turnovers, scooping up fumbles, all sorts of stuff like that. So that's stuff you like to see from a linebacker. And Miles Graham, the guy's already built like a tank anyway, and he can move as well. We saw him in the Under Armour game. You only see bits and pieces, I guess, because of Under Armour and high school film. You don't really get too much intel into the practices yet. You will after around July 31st or so. But you at least get to see what kind of skill set that they bring to the table. And it makes it exciting, and it brings competition. And I know I said Derek Wingo was my MVP, but hey, man, if you can't get past these guys, you may not even get on the field. Maybe you move to a different spot. Maybe you move to a different position. Maybe you stay where you're at. I think Derek Wingo's been pretty content with staying where he's at, considering he's still here at the University of Florida. He has at the transfer portal. So, it's really, I mean, like it's a really, really good thing to see a position that struggled. It's good to have a position that struggled, especially offensive line. I'm excited about the offensive line this year with the experience that we brought in, transfer portal guys coming back. I do like that. Obviously, we still haven't even talked about like the guys that were injured coming back as well. I mean, like you've got a lot of production, and you got a lot of guys that you brought in that were elite players. Even the LJ McCrae's, you saw him making plays in the spring game. I mean, this is what happens when you bring in high-level, top 50, five-star guys. I mean, these guys can come in and automatically play, depending on how much they learn the playbook and how some guys can come in with zero experience and be completely anomalies. Like I guarantee you, if Will Muschamp would have started Will Greer, he'd have been better than every quarterback on that team, even as a true freshman.
Don't.
Will Greer's top 50 player, almost a five-star.
Don't do that to me.
Yeah, I mean,
you
but
get me
that's
emotional,
the
bro.
But
We talk about that. Like we don't just speak.
what
You got to let me
that's
know
what I'm
when
trying to tell you.
bring
Like
up Will.
these
When you bring
teams,
up Will
these
Greer,
teams,
like that's
yeah,
like don't do
yeah.
that. Don't do
These
that.
teams that are consistently good, though, consistently bring in top 50 and five-star players. Look at Georgia. Look at Alabama. They're not going to lose a beat. Oregon soon here won't be able to lose a beat either with the way that they're recruiting. And that's the difference between your top 150, your top 200, your top 100, and then the top 55-star guys.
For sure. And the last one is obviously, LJ McCrae. I saw you guys arguing about it in the chat, which was kind of ironic that, you guys were already on that topic. Gators Online, they felt that, hey, McCrae was going to be the most likely freshman to see the field. And they said they have that. They still feel that way headed into this season. Again, you got to keep in mind, we talk about these freshmen, and I think we're going to see them. Jordan Castell last year is in my eyes the bar of freshmen playing on the field. That is probably the most you're going to see a freshman. Like he was a starter. I don't think these guys that we're talking about are going to see the field that much, but for good reason, right? You don't really want to see a freshman that often unless it's dire need or they're just that good. he was a little bit of both in that safety position with Jordan Castell. I don't think
Yeah.
these three that we're talking about here are going to be in that category, but again, for good reason, because of the guys in front of them should be much better than them. But they believe LJ, he's been kicking butt in the passing drills, which could also mean their O-line sucks, but whatever. Look, I think he'll be like what a TJ Searcy was. I think he'll be a Kelby Collins, right? Somebody who was impactful. And those guys did play a lot, so I can't say too much. They came in and they played a second rotation, a very healthy second rotation. So I think that's probably what they feel that he'll be on the football field. I don't think a freshman is going to be what Jordan Castell was last year, but I also think that's a good thing, excluding injuries, obviously. That doesn't count.
It's really just the experience factor is why freshmen usually don't play before somebody else. But now, like if you're struggling and you're just extremely struggling at a position, you'll throw a freshman in there that may have been a high-rated player and see what they can do at least at that point. But I don't see us struggling there at linebacker with bringing in Pup Howard and you're having returning Shamar James. I just don't see it unless there's a ton of injuries or something happens. But I think we're pretty set there at linebacker.
No, absolutely. I'm excited. Great stuff there. And the last little bit here, we got a couple more things, but this is two things that were interesting, good, cool takeaways. These were little preseason intels. There's a whole article. There's two things that I thought most interesting because we've kind of alluded to it. So another major change this offseason has been a strike system that Napier started with the players. If you show up late for anything, team practice, breakfast, position meetings, practice, workouts, class, tutoring, you have to run the next morning at 6 a.m. No exceptions.
How many strikes has Cormani got already?
Come on now. After 3 strikes, your position group has to show up and run with you. 6 strikes, now the whole offense or defense has to run with you. It was an adjustment for the players at first, and a few of them had faced the consequences for their tardiness, but the new system is running smoothly now and has made the team more accountable. Here's okay. I love it, and I love the impact of it. I guess my question is like, why how is this an issue, and why year 3 is this now being implemented? Like, again, I don't know the ins and outs. I just feel like this should be, if it isn't an issue, am I wrong there for thinking that, like, in 6 strikes?
No.
I guess being late for tardies and things like that. Like, I don't know how. Like, if it's 1 minute late, doesn't matter. That counts as late. And if, again, that attention to detail, maybe they were like 4 or 5 minutes late, they didn't care, but now they've ramped it up. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what goes on in like a college campus when it comes to like a football player in sports. Maybe there's like some certain classes that keep them late, or maybe they trip down the hallway. I don't know what goes on through all that. But I mean, a 6-strike system seems fair. I mean, like people screw up and maybe they screw up again. Maybe something's worth 2 or 3 strikes. You never know. But I like the system that they implemented. And as you said, I was like, I'm thinking the same way as you. Is like, why didn't we have this at the beginning? Like, this makes no sense. You don't hold. I guess there was a different time or a different system that they had, but you got to hold kids accountable, man. Like, they have to learn. You have to teach them to learn. And when you do that in this kind of like group aspect and saying, hey, if your group is late, that means all those other kids are yelling at that one kid that's late saying, hey, dude, I don't want to run stadiums. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. So it makes the whole group, whatever position group or whatever kind of groups they got them in, it makes them all accountable. So they function more as a team and they function more as a unit. And that's kind of what that exercise is about. So I like it. I think Urban Meyer did something like that too as well. I'd have to ask Allie, but I'm pretty sure she did. I think we watched that Swamp Kings and they had something going on that was like that. But I mean, at the end of the day, like that's a good system to implement. Like, it should have been implemented a long time ago. I don't know if they had something like that going on before, but this is the first time we're hearing about it.
And maybe they had something for guys being late, but what I like now is that again, your actions start affecting your teammates, and that's exactly what happens on the football field. Your actions, your lack of attention to detail, affects everybody. And so maybe before, when they were late, it'd be like a slap on the wrist, or maybe it would be a run, or it'd be stay late for practices, and it really wasn't getting. And sure, that kid was kind of like whatever, but when you start affecting your players are like, bro, you better. If I'm running because of your ass, because you can't get to tutoring 5 minutes early, that's where you get that kind of, I'm going to whoop your ass if you're late again, which I like, I love. And it reminds me of a story that I saw. I wanted to bring it up. I made a note of it, of Nick Saban talked about it at SEC Media Day. I don't think I said it on the show, but I might have, but it doesn't matter. It applies here again, where Julio Jones was at a practice it was during OTAs during the summer, so no coaches were around. And then Nick has said we watched from afar, and Julio's there like 10 years later, like well after he was playing. He was already in the pros. He was just there rehabbing, doing some things at Alabama. And the players from Alabama at that current time were practicing running around, and one of the wide receivers dropped the ball, started cussing out the like everybody on the field, but taking accountability for himself for dropping the football. Julio yells at the wide receivers as they come here. Comes on over. He goes, "We don't do that here at Alabama. That's not how we function." And Nick was kind of like, "Look, this shows you like the culture still lives strong 10 years later." And when I saw that, I was like, man, something like that takes a while to really instill across your program. And you've got to have guys that think like that to be able to pass it down. And that's why obviously we saw the dynasty that Bama was able to create was because of that mindset. And something like that, again, takes a while to establish. And that's where I believe that Billy is trying and is, I think this year there. And it's something that Florida has lacked for a very long time. And if you lose it, it's very hard to get it back to create again, you kind of see it with the swamp and what we talk about in us as fans, we have the expectations and what we think Florida football should be. But we've talked about it. We've said it. It's gotten away from inside the house. And how do you do it? You've got to start from the ground up and you've got to build it within to where it is just, in a way, you're brainwashed, right? To this is how we function. Like it's not even, you don't even have to think about it. You just wake up and you do. That takes time to instill and to create. And I do believe we're on that path, but we should see some of it this year.
Yeah, I mean, they've brought in a lot of new players over the years, obviously from the transfer portal too, and also like even with bringing in people like Joey Slackman, who's been around the game for the longest time, and some of these older guys that you brought in from the portal, it helps. It helps with the younger guys, and at the same time, it keeps people's egos in check. Like
Sure.
you're not gonna think your shit doesn't stink over somebody else on the field because I don't have to tie my shoes a certain way. I don't have to be here at this time. No, we all have to be here. And if you're not, then we're running stadiums and then we're all pissing down your leg because you made us do it. So it helps a lot of the situational things that you usually, like you said, the discipline that's on the field helps that. Lining up correctly helps that. Less penalties, all that kind of stuff, man. So I'm all for it, man. The more discipline and the more accountability we got, the better. And
Absolutely.
yes, Scott, Katie Turner is not single. She is in a relationship.
The last little bit here, they kind of alluded to the impact the strength and conditioning has had, which we've been yelling at the whole time. The part that I find interesting and something that we've kind of all been wondering says those changes have continued to make a difference in summer per sources, particularly on defense. Code defense, according to Ron Roberts, is running the show with Austin Armstrong, and there's confidence internally that Roberts will be helping improve the unit.
Yep.
So one source says that the secondary and defensive line look better at OTAs, which is great. But the big key point that I wanted to pull up, because everyone keeps saying that Ron Roberts is gonna be babysitting, and we've heard Napier said it in an interview, I think at SEC Media Days. It's all running together now, but basically like he's the guy who wrote the book, and we've got other people that are part of this process, part of this coaching tree that have been trying to teach it, and now we have the author here to help you run to establish it even more. So. Look, I know that we want to make fun of Austin in front of this process of like, hey, like he can't handle it, all these things. I think what you were overlooking is that it takes a lot. You got to swallow that pride to step aside and have someone to work alongside somebody. I think that speaks volumes more than people want to realize. And so I commend both guys for being able to step in and have the same goal in mind. I don't care about title. I just want to win. And if I have to have you kind of hold my hand until we get there, then so be it. As long as we're winning football games and I'm getting better, I really don't care how we get there. And that's how I felt when I read this, that these changes were made and the significant impact that it has made. So
Yeah, and when you bring in somebody for 1 year, they can't it's hard to just turn around a defense in 1 year. So I got to give him a little bit of credit on that, but it still should have looked better because I think I remember the year before we were like, well, it can't get any worse, and guess what? It got worse. So
that was your fault.
I did when you watch the spring game though, I did and this is something you can take away because I don't take away a lot from spring games, just situational stuff. There wasn't that many missed tackles in that spring game, and that was something that I really noticed and that really popped off the top of my head. I was like, good, that negates a lot of those big runs that you see a lot of the times, or those just the shedding of a tackle. I mean, hitting receivers that are defenseless and then still getting past you and getting yards after the catch. I mean, that matters a lot, especially strength and conditioning, all that other kind of stuff too. We've seen, I think it was somebody, Ben Hanks or somebody, just like squat clean 300 pounds. I mean, it was crazy. What am I saying? Ben Hanks? It's not his
Yeah,
name.
I was
It's
like, that was a
it
recruit.
was Brian. I think it was Brian
Brian.
Green.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. He like power squat 300 pounds. I mean, I haven't
Walk
like,
on.
when was the last time you seen workout videos of like kids just squatting a whole shitload of weight and just yelling and doing all this other kind of stuff? We never really saw that. If you think about it, you look back and we saw a few videos, but we didn't see like all these videos of like, hey, let's hit our top. Let's see if we can go 305 or 315 or 320. You never saw that. So now there's like competition in the weight room. Like it's what a football program should be.
Great killer instincts all the way through. Last little two, we'll call them fun topics here. Some people may find this upsetting. It's about Tennessee football, so pipe your horns. But they just announced I guess a new Neyland Entertainment Center, and the reason I brought it up because I find it very interesting, and it's going to be the new wave of sports, not just
Man,
college football.
so now they're going to be able to watch their team lose in fashion.
In comfort, yes, sir, absolutely. This is something that I'm familiar with being a Braves fan. They did it, I would say, not first. They've done it pretty early. They've done it really well. They were at Turner Field in Atlanta, in the middle of the city. Not much around it, just parking lots, and then housing was kind of it. And you just would tailgate kind of next to the stadium or in the parking lot, right? Kind of like your typical sporting event. Like that's just what it was.
Yeah.
Moved to Marietta up north a little bit, and they've created what is known now as the Battery. And they build a hotel that looks into the stadium. There's a pool right there, a very immersive situation for fans. And I was going to hate it. I piss on Turner when I drive by. I don't miss it a bit. The Battery is an incredible experience. Went to the World Series there. I was able to be like literally immersed into the game. Sounds crazy. I sat outside the stadium because they have a big jumbotron with the sound from the stadium being pumped in. Like you feel like you're at the game. Like it's unbelievable. And it's a really cool experience. You might not like it at first, but just because it is changing. And so now Tennessee is getting involved. A lot of professional sports are headed into that direction because you're creating, again, it's like a Disney World. Like it's not just you go there for the game. You can go there for a weekend, and there's just things for everybody. They've got like a Topgolf like weird thing built into it. My whole point of this is to make you see, like, guys, this could be coming to Gainesville. How it could happen, I don't know. Obviously, Florida has that college-esque vibe, and I know people are not going to want to hear or change these things. But also keep in mind, with the movement of where we're going with the college football playoffs, and you're able to host games at your stadium, you're going to need more things to host these events. It creates a bigger audience than what we're putting on now, which leads to things like this. Like, again, you walk into the hotel and then you've got shops and bars, and everything is kind of just cohesive as one unit, all about the sport. Like everything, like there's just the sounds, everything, and it's just fully in. Again, I don't know where you could squeeze it in to the Swamp because it already kind of has that vibe, but I wouldn't be surprised if they try to finagle this some way, somehow.
Yeah, they've already got some concepts of like a game room inside of the stadium, but I guess we're talking more outside of the stadium, like hotels and stuff to stay. Like, and if anybody's ever been down to the Battery, I live like 15 miles, 20 miles from the Battery. I mean, it's phenomenal. I was talking to Shelton when we first had the Battery here at a year. There was a lot of bars, there was a lot of places, Sport and Social was there, a lot of stuff, right? We go back 2 years later. I mean, there's hotel rooms, there's everything, and the Omni that you can stay in, it goes up on a big platform, right? So like if you're staying at the top hotel up at the top, or maybe the ones right at the bottom, they're very expensive, by the way, on game day. But if you pay for that, man, you can literally sit on your balcony and watch the Braves game, like over the stadium. You don't even have to buy a ticket to the game, nothing like that. You sit there, you can watch it. When the game's over, you go downstairs, you go down the elevator, party town down there. And you can all do whatever you want to, restaurants. There's so many things down there. I mean, I would be on this show for like 30 minutes talking about how many things are down there. They even got a place where they play concerts and stuff.
Yeah, I just, again, I think it seems crazy, but imagine having a nice hotel built right next to the Swamp and a couple of rooms looking into it. It's just, it sounds weird, but they've talked about upgrading, doing things like that. I think this would be an upgrade to that area that would be more accepted by the people. And once you kind of got over like the change, if they do it right, you can't take away from the historic part of that swamp in that area, but I don't know. I just see the things headed this way. It just is what it is. It's all about money, and this allows for more money and more of a fan experience around the stadium.
Yeah, you also got to think about like kids and like parents going on visits. Do they put them in one of those hotel rooms? They enjoy everything there, the atmosphere. It's a lot better of a visit than it was anywhere else. And like Miami's still trying to get a stadium, so I mean, like you definitely have the advantage over Miami. If somebody goes over there. But
I think yeah.
yeah, I mean, like it's a good idea. It's a good concept. Like I said, like I'm down here at the Battery, the Braves Stadium. I mean, I've seen it. That's kind of the same concept they're doing here. It's pretty badass. And I think a lot of college towns eventually might evolve to that. But
Yeah.
you're starting to see it here in Tennessee. So
Yeah, as I'm saying, I think this is. I'm talking about it because I think it could be a potential thing to happen for us. This last little bit
yeah,
here, this is crazy to me. So we talk about money and we talk about what we think these guys are getting paid in NIL and whatnot and what have you. This is a Najiri Kennedy from Texas Tech pitcher. She transferred from Stanford to Texas Tech, and the rumor mill is stating that she got $1.2 million in NIL sponsorships or offers from Texas Tech. And I was like,
yeah,
this is if the softball pitcher, which we were kind of talking to, like if we're talking like tiers of sports, obviously, number one tier being football, then you've got basketball, baseball, but softball is it's up there. It's in that upper echelon for sure. So it's not
yeah.
like it's like if this was like a golf contract, I'm like, yo, this is wild. Like this to me, softball is much more popular than that. But still, if a softball player is getting 1.2, what what are these football players getting, Dave? Like, maybe we don't have a pulse. We think we know. We ain't got a clue.
Yeah, what's DJ Lagway getting, man? No,
That's what right. Like, think about it. Like, it's got to be 10. If we're using this as a bar, right?
yeah, I think that's an estimate too. Like I know you got to think it's an estimate that they do on three, but at the same time, like they already have other college players that are estimated in that category, maybe even below that category. So like you said, if these softball players are getting paid something like this, and it's probably a top softball player. I don't watch a lot of softball, so she
Sure,
might be a top softball player. So top softball players probably will get a little bit
sure.
more NIL than anybody else, but still, that is insane because you got to think, what is the top football
Top
player
football
getting
player.
paid?
That's
Yeah,
crazy. Good for
yeah.
her. Good for her. Cashing out. I love that.
And and
That's
and and these NIL deals, they're going up too. Like they've already had articles about like certain schools saying, "Hey, look, this NIL is getting out of control because every single year the
inflation,
price
Dave.
for a good quarterback, a price for a
Yeah.
good running back, it goes up because of the market."
Supply and demand, baby. Supply and demand. So
Yeah. So anybody out there that needs an NIL deal for like somebody like us, hit us up, man.
yeah,
We'll give you a little estimate.
absolutely. Well, boys, girls, what a show. Stacked from top to bottom. Next week,
We
I
got
think
Hollywood back, man.
we got Hollywood back. I think next week we're gonna be in full form. Full form with us getting. I think we got media days on Tuesday morning. We're going to hear from all the coaches. So obviously we're going to talk all about that, and then practice starts Wednesday. Is that right?
Yeah, practice starts on the
31st.
31st. Yeah, I've got a email
Billy
here.
watches the show. Literally, the guy starting practice on Wednesday. I mean, he could have started it Monday. He could have started on Tuesday. No. He started on Wednesday. Best day of the week. He goes, boys, let's give them something to talk about.
Gator Dave sent me some of his media notes that he gets. It says the team will not report to camp. The team will report to camp Tuesday, July 30th. The first practice will be held Wednesday, July 31st.
Tweets of the week. We got to get those back. People have been harping on you, Dave. We've been slacking on
Yeah,
that.
you know what? I've thought of some cool concepts about that. I'll talk to you about it after the show. But the only reason I quit doing it in article form, the only reason I stopped doing it in article form is because nobody was reading it. I would get like 20 or 30 views each time.
Well, those 20 or 30 cared about it, Dave.
Hey, they ain't going away. I still got them all bookmarked. So,
hey guys, I've been trying to play with Stephen Harris to give him an opportunity to play it back, and yeah, he's been ghosting me. I don't think he wants to stay. I don't think he wants to smoke. I get it. I don't blame him because he lost. But
did y'all rematch? Did y'all rematch?
No, he's scared. He don't want to smoke. He's been avoiding me like the plague. So I get it.
Hey, Steve, come on, man. Best 2 out of 3.
Right. I mean, I'm ready for it. Well, boys, I love you as always. Happy Wednesday. Good stuff. Great show. Smash the like button, subscribe. We will see you boys in the next one. We got some news that happens this week. I think we got a commit happening this weekend. We may be going rock and rolling for that. So I appreciate you as always. Any last words, old Swolder?
No, man, we're fixing to. We talked to Brian over at Alma Mater for the Florida Miami game, and we're going to be hosting a live show there inside of the store. So we're working on a time right now because Florida Victoria is supposed to have an event too. So we figured out a time, but we're going to figure out something else around it if the Florida Victorious event coincides with that. Champs
Corner coming soon. You're 100% right, Stephen Harris. The rest of the Mondays from here on out, I think we get Champs Corner back and rolling. Next Monday we won't have any film to look at, but maybe we get it kicked off because then after that Mondays are back on with Stephen Harris. So
we're gonna be pumping now.
Yeah, we're in full swing. The schedule is going to be absolute mayhem here on the show. Mondays obviously are going to be nuts with Champs Corner. Wednesday's going to be bumping. Friday, we're going to have like probably like an EA Sports. Saturday, there's going to be multiple shows. We've got our High Top Sports Game Day show. We've got the pregame show. We've got the halftime show. And then, of course, the iconic call-in show. So there's 4 shows, possibly 5 if I'm feeling frisky on Saturday. Sunday, you're going to have the reaction show, which kind of just is that common, not fanatical show response come Sunday. And then we're right back into it. So we're in the full swing of hype, humming. You're going to see a lot of this beautiful faces if you guys are subscribed and liking the button. So I appreciate y'all. Be good. I love you. Till next time. Peace and love, baby.
Peace and love. And report the news.